Good afternoon. This is episode 8 of One Door at a Time, and I am Jason Richardson, the Vice President of the Home Service Companies for Security National Life. And with me today, I've got Mr. Larry Burton, the Central Regional Manager for Security National Life. Larry, how are you doing today?
Man, I'm doing great. If it got any better, I couldn't stand it.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
Well, it's not really that good. I just try to make it sound as good as I can.
Well, as salespeople, we often do that, right? We put a little extra sugar on top, a little syrup, make things sound good.
Well, you know, when customers ask you how you're doing, they really don't want to know, so you might as well just tell them I'm fine, so move on.
Right. Right. Yeah, you ask that one person that says, "Oh, okay, let me tell you all my ailments. How much time you got?" Right?
Yeah.
Well, Larry, thanks for joining me today. And usually when we get started on these things, we start off with an introduction. So before we get there, though, I do want to mention for whatever platform that you're listening to this on, I hope you are subscribed. These interviews that we do here, one door at a time, are very short, or rather short in nature. Hopefully you get something out of it. And if you've been in the home service business before, a lot of this will sound vaguely familiar regardless of what company you've ever worked for. But yeah, give us a subscribe, a like, and all that other kind of sign of appreciation. So Larry, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the home service business.
Well, really, the home service business is all I've ever really done as far as insurance is concerned. I was in 1980, I think in November of 1980, I was about to go to work for a funeral home in Cleveland, Mississippi. Picking up bodies, doing all working funerals, all the stuff that funeral homes do. And because I needed, just like, a lot of people, I needed a job. And back then you did whatever you had to do to get one. And when you got one, you didn't quit unless they ran you off. It's a little different than things are these days. But just before I did, in February of 1981, I was approached by an ex-agent who's now deceased and said, "How don't you come work with Mutual Savings?" I was like, "Okay, what are we going to be doing?" He said, "Oh, I collect insurance." I was like, "Collect insurance?" He said, "Yeah." Well, I've collected money I've been a bill collector. I've done a little bit of everything, so I guess I can do that too. So I started to work with Mutual Savings in February of 1981, stayed as an agent, worked as an agent, staff manager, district manager, and eventually regional manager. That lasted for 30 years till the company went through a buyout. I stayed with the company that bought us for about 6 months. Of course, the Mutual Savings deal was 30 years. I might have said, I don't remember, but I stayed with that other company about 6 months, and I realized that was not where I wanted to spend the rest of my life. Did a little bit of independent stuff, actually, with our final expense division for a little while, and then you contacted me, and we hooked up about, I guess we've been about 2012 or so, or 11.
14.
14. Well, I think that's when I became full-time. I was actually writing some stuff.
Right.
Part-time before that, but I've been here ever since. I mean, it's as close to doing what I was used to doing as anything I found. Security National, the business model or the distribution system, whatever you want to call it, to me is by far the best distribution system for home service now that exists.
Well, as with everything in life, there's always going to be change. Change is that one thing that's constant in life. And this business has certainly changed in the 23 years that I've been in it, Larry, the 30 plus that you've been in it for sure. It's changed an awful lot. And so there are things that we have to do to adapt in order for this business or any business to survive. And I think that we've been able to do that at Security National with good people like yourself that like what they do, just didn't necessarily like who they were doing it with anymore. So, you have to adapt to survive, but that doesn't mean that you change the crux of who you are in the home service distribution model. That connection that we have with the customer is our secret sauce, right? It's our key to success, and to give that up in hopes that we've both heard all the excuses. You'll have so much more time to sell, and all those other things that they say. People that live in ivory towers that have never done anything like what we do. Why would you give your secret sauce up? It doesn't make any sense to me.
No, absolutely not. And, although I'm dating myself, this past February made 42 years in the business. And I'm proud of that. I mean, of course, like I say, it dates myself a little bit, but, when I first started, it was the most amazing thing to me. I think the first maybe company-wide meeting I went to, they were giving out service awards, and there was people getting 45-year service awards. I mean, just not just one. I'm talking about dozens of them. And I was just amazed, how in the world could somebody do this for 45 years? And
right.
That's unheard of now. I mean, you seldom run across anybody now that's been in the business that long. So I'm proud of what I've done in that respect. So, and I would encourage anybody out there, work toward that same goal. Stay with what you got.
Well,
it's not work to do something different.
Well, and the one of the plus sides of being an independent agent in this line of business is the renewal stream. So if you think about all those years ago, obviously all the things you learned along the way. There's some value. There's a lot of value in that. So not taking anything away from that, but just assuming that you had all that same knowledge, but you had a contract where you were making the renewals that we pay out 40 years ago. I mean, think about what what kind of renewal stream would you have today,
Exactly. It's no telling, but, and I would encourage too, we're kind of getting off track here, maybe a little bit, but when a thought comes to my mind, I better mention it. I'll forget it if I don't. I would encourage any newer agents out there, don't ever blame lack of training on your failure. Because I can tell you how much my training consisted of. The manager worked for me a half a day, and he found out I knew where the streets were in Cleveland, Mississippi, and I never saw him again. But I survived because I had to. And I'm sure, Jason, you probably
exactly
had no training to mount anything. I mean, I had 2 kids to feed. I didn't have a choice. So
yeah, exactly.
Take that attitude. I don't have any choice. I've got to do it.
That's right. And, the great thing about, we don't sell like we don't have to have a Series 6 license or, something serious like that. And, it's just life insurance. You have it. When you die, we pay. That's pretty much how well it works. There's only one claim. You only die once. So it's pretty simple, and then that's kind of there's beauty in simplicity. That was Apple and Steve Jobs' deal when they created the iPhone, when they could hand that iPhone to some little kid in a faraway country who was not familiar with technology, and it was intuitive enough for them to be able to do it without a lot of teaching. They said, okay, we've got a winner here. And so there is beauty in simplicity. Things are complicated enough in life without having to add your career to it. So that was a great sales tip, Larry, and definitely it's easy to get off base and distracted. Things are going great. Everybody's buying. Everybody's paying their insurance. It's easy to walk on cloud 9, but the moment Miss Jones or Miss Smith decides that they can't pay their insurance anymore, or they're going to go with a competitor, all of a sudden you feel like you've been beaten up and drug out in the middle of the streets to be made fun of. And it's really easy at that point to give up and to go do something else. I don't want to get beat up anymore. I'm just going to go work at the grocery store. Guess what? The grocery store people, they're going to beat you up too. Some Karen is going to show up and she's going to, make your life miserable. So you might as well just stick with it and continue to grow your income stream as opposed to working a 9 to 5, having to punch a clock and all that other kind of stuff. So, Larry, I know that in the 40 plus years that you've been doing this, undoubtedly you have some kind of funny story to tell us. We all have those funny stories. Some of those we can't relate to in public. but this is a PG show. So, but anything, a funny item that's happened to you?
Oh gosh, there's so many. Some I couldn't talk about, some I could talk about. Um, One that comes to
All of the
mind.
names are changed to protect the guilty.
Exactly. I don't know the kid's name anyway. So, uh, one thing that comes to mind, I was actually, and this was while I was in the Hattiesburg district. I think I was working open Devon and Laurel, and I had been to this lady's house once or twice. She was an older lady. She kept fostering kids, so every time you went in there, there was different kids, and I've always liked kids, and for some reason they like me. I don't know why, but this little guy, he was probably, I don't know, two. He might not even been that old, still wearing diapers. He comes over, he's just cute as he could be, and he looked up at me and grinned, and he stuck his hand out, and then he crawls up in my lap. I'm sitting there talking to him, and all of a sudden, he just looks at me and grins, and this awful odor. And you can imagine what it was. It wasn't rotten, it wasn't old meat or anything. And he just grinned at me. And I was like, oh, okay, wait, you need to get out.
All right, now get lost, kid.
Yeah, get away.
And what I was saying earlier about the experiences we have in life prepare us for the things in the future. See, little did you know that would prepare you for all the same stuff that you would be dealing with in home office. So.
Exactly. I had a lot of that in the home office too.
Yeah, they're like, okay, this reminds me about that kid.
yeah, exactly. But I've had so much fun. I mean, that's, I could sit here and talk all day probably if it would all come to mind. But there's been so much good stuff. There's been bad stuff, but again, I tell any newer agents out there, don't dwell on the bad stuff. Always find something good to think about. And if you're having a really bad day, just stop what you're doing and go see one of your best customers, one that always pays on time and one that just loves to see you come by and just sit there and talk to them. And get your head out of the sand and get away from that negative stuff.
Well, it seems like everybody that I ask has that certain moment where it really drilled home that they were doing what they needed to be doing. Because I think all of us have at one time or another those bad days that we talked about earlier, where we just wanted to quit, just throw our hands up, go home, tell the wife, hey, look, this isn't for me. I'm fixing to go find something else. But then there's those moments that it really just clicked in your mind. Hey, this is a good thing that I'm doing. Do you have a moment like that comes to your mind?
Not an exact moment. Of course, I'm like everybody else. I quit 1,000 times. I just never told anybody. But I guess I always came back. Again, like I said, it's a different generation. I was raised in a generation where you just didn't quit. Back then, jobs weren't that easy to find. There weren't we're hiring signs everywhere. So I guess that probably more than anything made me stick it out, even on bad days, because I knew it wasn't that easy to go find a job.
Well, especially like of course, you were from the Delta in Mississippi, so it's one of the more impoverished areas in the United States. But yeah, anywhere, and as the economy ebbs and flows, it's good to know that, hey, as long as you're working with a financially stable company, you're taking care of those customers and delivering on those promises. And delivering on those promises for me was the moment that things really became real when I delivered that first death claim check. But it wasn't me just taking the money; it was actually me giving money. I was like, "Wow, this is really something," And the people that we deal with, depend on us. It's amazing that in this day and age where you have so much crime related to identity theft and people don't trust people to open up their doors, that I still go to some of the same neighborhoods and open up a door and people let me in and, trust me with, their personal health information, their social security number, obviously, if they're taking an application. But it's so that trust that those people put in us to write the policy and help make sure that they stay on the right track is a sacred trust that we don't want to violate.
We're selling them a promise, really. That's promise is all we're selling them until we bring them a policy.
Mm-hmm.
And still, there's probably in the back of their mind sometime they're putting a lot of faith in us. And I don't think we should take it lightly. Don't ever take that for granted. We're selling a promise. We're walking out the door with their money, and they don't have anything till we bring that policy back.
Right. Yeah. And, regardless of whether, we service generally in our market, we service the lower moderate to low income market. But I treat my customers just as well as some of these other agents with other companies treat doctors. Okay. Because, and maybe even more so because, a lot of these people have become family over the years, seen deaths and marriages and kids being born. And plus, hey, when you got just a small amount of money to pull from, it's more important that you know where it's going, right?
Exactly.
So,
well, and as you said, I grew up in the Mississippi Delta, Drew, Mississippi. Those of you who know where that is. The debit insurance business up there wasn't a real, it's not something that most people up there look favorably on. There's been books written about it, movies made about it and all that. But what I always tell anybody that ever asked me, they said, why do you collect people's insurance? I said, because the people I collect from would not have any insurance otherwise. And they're going to die just like you. So that's why I do it. And still, I'll be honest, though, there were years there where I really didn't make it public what I did to some of my friends because, I knew how they would look at it. But it got to a point where I was making probably 3 times as much money as they were. And in a lot of cases, probably more than that. So that's when, if you ask that aha moment, that was it. When I really started looking at what other people were making. As you know, you worked for the prior company that I did, and we always thought we complained about what we made. Oh, we don't make as much as the company. You still were making way more than most people around you. So,
yeah, exactly right. And I know that lifestyles. You have lifestyle creep, and of course, we have excessive inflation. But looking back, I'd say, well, there ain't no way I could live off of what I started at 23 years ago. But when I was making the money and looking around, it's like, my goodness, I was already making more then than a lot of people were made. And I didn't finish college. Like you, I had when I got in the insurance business, I had 1 kid and 1 on the way. So I didn't have no choice but to work. And of course, I was looking for a company to go to work for. So I called a company and home office, and they put me through to this guy right here. And he got me an interview with his managers, and talking about lack of training. Yeah, that's about it. My manager knew that I knew how to run a debit, and I could, fiddle fart around and find where the streets were. And so, because when I started in Crystal Springs in the insurance business, they didn't have street signs. They had obelisk, kind of like the Washington Monument, where they had spray painted the names of the streets, like in stencil letters, down the side of the obelisk. By the time I came around, this thing, you couldn't even read them. So he finally looked up, and I found the main street that went through town, and then I just asked each person where the person after was located at. Hey, where's this street at? But by the time I got around there, I kind of knew where most of the streets were at. And so, because this is before GPSs or anything, you had to stop at the town hall and pick up a map.
Hey, but yeah, based on what you just said right there, everybody needs to learn how to read a map. even though you got a GPS, everybody needs that experience. Try to find people looking at a map, a county map especially.
Well, it's critical thinking, really, because if you have to think, okay, now I need to turn left or right, because I've caught myself doing the same thing. But I tell my wife, we go out of town or something, I said, quit staring at that thing. It didn't change 2 seconds ago. Look at the signs up there. You see that sign? It tells you where you need to go.
Yeah. And what if all that went away one day? And it very well could.
Right.
And somebody hit or bug the system or whatever, and all of a sudden we have no electricity, we have no GPSs. We'd be in a mess.
Well, we normally on our rate calculators on our cell phones nowadays, but I still keep my old paper rate book in the car with me because there's still places I go that I don't have service.
Oh, I still use
the same thing with the GPS. If you don't have service, you can't use it. So it's always good to be able to not have to depend on that technology too much. For those of you who are out there listening to this on Spotify or YouTube, be sure to smash that like button or applicable sign of appreciation, hit the subscribe button. And if you are a experienced home service agent, or if you'd like to come from the dark side of ordinary, where you actually have to pay for your leads, whereas in the home service business, I like to say we're actually getting paid to run leads, because when you collect a premium, you're getting paid. And when you collect that premium, you're in front of the customer. You already have a relationship with them. So you can say, hey, who do you know that I can go talk to about their life insurance? And so if you're tired of paying for leads that have been run through 4 or 5 times and want to build a nice renewal stream versus spinning your wheels your whole working career, trying to run from one sale to the next, you can reach out to us at snlhomeservice.com, and you can hit the contact button, and that'll put you in touch with Larry or one of our other managers, depending on what state that you're in, because we're in 18 different states in the home service division. So, but yeah, if you're interested in that, or if you've never been in the insurance business before and you're interested in getting into the business, just like Larry and I did many, many years ago, you too can get into the life insurance business, and we can show you and help you how to get into that if you're in one of the states that we operate in. So you can, again, visit us at snlhomeservice.com and contact us that way. Larry, any more thoughts or things that you want to leave with us as we're wrapping things up?
Well, and I'm talking about sales, and I know prospecting that's the obstacle everybody deals with. I don't care who you are. But the one thing I think that a person should always do is, as far as prospecting, in my opinion, emergency contacts are probably one of the best prospecting tools we have. And it also gives you valuable information, plus it gives you people to talk to. And when I get an emergency contact from a customer, I said, okay, who is this person now? That's my son. I said, okay, I'd like to have your permission to go ahead and call him when I get back to my office, because I want him to know who I am in case I ever have to call him for some reason. If there happens to be an emergency, I hope there never is one. But I want him to know who I am, and then I'm going to ask him if I can come over and meet him in person. So that's kind of a never-ending prospecting source, because you go see him, and then you go see the next one, and you go see the next one. But the key to everything is activity, sure. And keeping score of your activity. Because if you're making 10 approaches and you tell yourself you made 40 when you really only made 10, you really don't know where your problem is. But if you make 40, you get 20 prospects, 10 interviews, and 5 sales. If you do all that, you'll be successful. But if you lie to yourself and you said you made 40 and you actually made 5, you don't know where the problem is, and you don't know where you need to improve. So
yeah, when you're in the hot Mississippi summer heat and people are telling you no, it's really easy to lose sight of where your numbers are unless you're keeping up with it.
Yeah, 5 looks like 40 really quick.
Exactly, when the dog gets to chasing after you.
Mm-hmm.
But talking about that emergency contacts, I think it's as with anything that we do, it works so well that you don't do it anymore, right? And so I ran a lead for those few times that for that little while that I was over on the dark side myself of the final expense ordinary side. Had a lead, guy didn't pan out because he didn't have a bank account. So I went back to him to write him up, and all he could afford was $20 a month. The guy was 81 years old. So that bought him all of $500 worth of life insurance. Now, Larry, when you started, $500 was still normal. Here at Security National, we quit selling $500 policies some number of years ago, but we were still selling it then. And I wrote a $500 policy on it. And I said, hey, I'm going to contact your daughter just in case. And his daughter happened to live in the same town. So I went over to the north side of town and said, hey, look, your dad bought some insurance, but it was only for $500. But $500 is $500. So, but if you need anything, I'm your guy. She goes, he needs some more insurance than that. She bought the insurance on him. So she bought $3,000 worth of life insurance, paid it faithfully until he died. And he died less than 2 years into the policy. Of course, we still paid. It was, I think it was like 2 months shy of 2 years. But anyhow, yeah, the one time that always jumps to my mind when I asked about emergency contacts, and it's like, well, I mean, if it worked that great, the one time you used it, why don't you use it more often? But yeah, and I guess sometimes when you've been doing this for a while, you can get lazy, just because from the standpoint of, you know, you've established a name in the communities that you're working in. So it's really easy for you just to show up and they go, hey, look, I told my sister that she needed to talk to you, you know, that type of thing, as opposed to when you're getting started. A lot of times you have to beat the mean streets and knock a lot of doors. You don't really, the longer you've been in a particular area, the less likely you are to be doing that.
Well, and when you're young, I was 22, 3 when I started. Older people a lot of times don't take 22 or 23-year-old people seriously. So
that's so true. Yeah.
And I know you've probably fought the same battle, but you know, as I get older, they seem to take me more seriously. They feel sorry for me. I'm not sure which.
Either one works. Just buy the policy.
Exactly. I do want to tell you one quick story before we go. We got just a few more minutes. One of our funeral directors that owns Johnson Funeral Home in Prentice called me about 2 weeks ago, and she said, Larry, I need help. I was like, okay, what do you need? She said, the junior high here in Prentice wants me to come speak to these junior high kids, and I don't know what to say. I said, well, what are you supposed to be talking to them about? She said, insurance and funerals and all that kind of, I don't know what to say. I said, well, if that's what they want you to talk about, why don't you talk about insurance and funerals? I said, you know how to do a funeral, don't you? She said, well, yeah, that's what I do every day. I said, okay, well, tell them about that. And then if you want to explain insurance to them, life insurance, I said, just tell them, hey, you may buy car insurance. You may buy house insurance. You may not ever have your house may never burn. You may never wreck your car, but you are going to die. I promise you, you are going to die. You don't know when, but you're going to. And I said, that's pretty simple, Deidre. That's all you need to tell them. And you can take it from there. Then you should, okay, when you do, here's what's involved with the funeral, and talk about funeral costs. Talk about insurance as a way to fund the funeral. Pretty simple. She said, that is so simple. Thank you. I'm like, why didn't you talk about that? Why was that so hard?
This is revelatory.
Yeah. So that was kind of funny. And she called me a few days later. Said that worked so good. When I start talking about people insuring their stuff more than they do their own life, those kids' just eyes kind of lit up, you know. So
right. Well, Larry, I thank you again for coming on today and talking with us. And hopefully somebody somewhere out there will listen and decide to get into the business that's done so well for us over the last many years.
Okay, well, I appreciate you having me.
All right. Good deal. Thanks again for listening, folks. Until next time, happy selling.